Good evening, everyone. This is Tala with Drive-thru Therapy. Thank you guys for joining me tonight. I have been kind of releasing some episodes here and there and really going with my intuition on the topics that I'm addressing. As I've explained before, there is no method to the madness. It is just pure madness. I don't want to fool you or lie to you about that. There is no method at all. No rules, no regulations, none at all. None at all. They just come intuitively, and I get the sense that somebody needs to hear this topic, about this topic, and I send it out and hope for the best. So that's why there's no rhythm to it. It's just I get this urge and I know it's time to record something, and this is one of those nights. But before I begin with the topic, I want to thank everybody who's continuing to share with other people that might need this, which is wonderful. This is exactly why I'm doing it. I want this information to be handed to you and then handed to other people that might need it. So it's all good. It works well. And we just keep that rhythm going. So thank you guys for doing that. It is awesome because you guys know I don't have a Facebook or much of a social media. And so you're doing all the work, and I appreciate that. Also, if you want to email me a suggestion for a topic or anything at all, tell me where you're at in your journey, please feel free to email me at TALAIBRA8888@gmail.com, and you'll get a response from me. All right. I had the most interesting thing happen to me this morning. I had a little break in the middle of my sessions, and I was like, you know what, I'm feeling like fried eggs and T-bone steak. So I go to my neighborhood breakfast place and I walk in, and right as I'm walking in, I usually wear skirts. I don't think you know this about me, but here you go. And I wear heels pumps. You know, they're not really high. I'm pretty conservative with the heels, but they're there. Okay. So I'm walking in and I slip right in the most populated area in the restaurant, which is like right in the front. Everybody could see it. I fell, which is grateful. Nothing happened to my knees, and I had a previous knee injury. And so I got up, just started to order my breakfast, and went about my breakfast eating and reading my book. And after I was done, I left. But, you know, during the meal, the manager came up, asked me if I was okay. And the waitress came up and asked me if I was okay, and I was like, yeah, of course I'm okay. It's fine. I fall. People fall. This happens often. We're good. And it got me thinking. When I got back to my office, I thought, man, I remembered when I was about 20-something years old, and I had actually slipped in a restaurant and I fell. And I remember being so embarrassed. And now that restaurant was much darker. It was not in the morning, you know, where everybody can see it. This was much darker. It was late at night, and I was walking and I slipped. I mean, there was water on the floor, but whatever. I slipped. I fell. And I was so embarrassed. And I must have thought about that for about a week, in and out of my brain, thinking, oh my God, how I fell. I'm such a clumsy person. What are people going to think? What are people going to say about me? And I realized what a big contrast between my response today and the response I had back then. There's a big difference there. One is, you know, my 20-year-old version that fell, 20-something-year-old version that fell, was about an image that she wanted to keep. She wanted people to see a certain person, and that person fell. So she was okay before she fell, and then she was no longer okay with herself. She felt embarrassed. Somehow my image of myself changed when I fell and I got up. And the difference today is that Tala fell today. She slipped with her skirt and her heels, and it's the same Tala that got back up. Same self-loving Tala, self-compassionate, self-forgiving Tala. I was really very in tune with what I was being shown at that moment in time. It was a very awesome experience to actually sit with myself and figure out, why was this so important? I fell, but I didn't feel embarrassed. I felt excited. I was like, oh, finally something happens that a little different from everyday usual. But it wasn't embarrassing by any means. People fall. But I noticed that the big difference within me was that I did not need to present an image. I do not need to, or I have no longer this need to become perfect. So it got me thinking about the most common problem that we all confront in therapy is our need for perfection. And most of us say this proudly, like, I'm a perfectionist, and people don't understand what they're saying, because humans and humanity is imperfect at all. It is imperfect, and it makes mistakes. It falls and slips. It has also a spectrum of behaviors that we may not acknowledge as human, but most certainly it's within the human spectrum. For example, people that commit crimes are one end of the spectrum of humanity, just as well as the people that do good and are generous and giving. The other side of the spectrum, sure. The spectrum is all human. These are all human behaviors. Sometimes we distance ourselves from humanity by thinking that a person who committed this type of crime is so different from me, and that I'm so different from them, and I would never do what they did. I would never. This is what I really want you guys to remember, is that I am capable of anything human. And because I am human, it's more likely that I'm able to do things that are human as well. And so I'm not above people. When I look at humanity and its spectrum, there is a spectrum that I have to accept. I don't have to agree with, I just have to accept it, that it's there. I don't pretend that criminals don't exist, or that child molesters don't exist, or rapists don't exist, no such thing, or murderers don't exist. I don't pretend that at all. I know they're there. The need for perfection really keeps us away from accepting humanity by basically moving us further and further away from self-acceptance. The need for perfection implies that I'm capable of being perfect, and what I do is capable of being perfect. But at what cost? Will I become obsessive about something? Will I overwork? What does perfection imply about my self-worth? Is that the way I measure my value, my self-esteem, my self-worth? Is that the way I measure it? By how perfect I am? And when I'm not perfect, which is every time, do I sit in judgment of me and sound terrible about me? I want us to start throwing out this idea of I'm a perfectionist and I have this need for perfection, because it is nonsense. It is nonsense. What you're saying is that I do not accept that I'm human and I'm imperfect. And not only that, I will fucking judge other human beings because they are also not perfect. So if I'm judging myself, more than likely, I'm going to judge you too. You can't give what you don't have, but I'm going to give what I do have. And what I have is a lot of self-judgment, and you're going to get it. So let's not invite this idea or this need for perfection. Let us start acknowledging that humanity is imperfect. We're not interested in perfection. We are interested in self-love, self-compassion, and in us being self-loving and self-compassionate, we are going to give that to other people around us as well. When we don't have this judgment and this need to be perfect, and we're not sitting there keeping score all day long, I can be doing a lot of other things, like thinking about how to be in the moment, how to receive love when it's coming at me. If I think I need to be perfect, then, and of course I'm not perfect, then I'm going to sit in this self-judgment, and I'm not going to allow myself to receive love because I'm not worthy and I'm not perfect. I'm not allowed to give love. I will sabotage my own love. I will sabotage receiving love from other people just to prove it to myself that I'm not worthy. Anyways, why would you accept love, Tala? Why would you accept love? So let's change this pattern. I don't want anybody to say, I have this need to be perfect, or I am a perfectionist. I don't want you to ever get away with that again. If you're a perfectionist, just know what it really means about you. And I want us to bring it back to human size. I am imperfect because I am human, period. And I will trip and I will fall. But the good news is that the same Tala that fell is the same Tala that got up. She was self-loving either way, because this was not a measure of her self-value. Falling in front of everybody was not a measure of that. So there was no fear of me looking different or appearing different to other people, because I wasn't going that place. It was within me. I was always Tala, and I was pretty secure on who Tala is. And most certainly, Tala is not perfect, and she is allowed and flexible enough on the inside to slip and fall, do the splits halfway, and then come back up just fine. And it would still be Tala. So that's what I learned about falling today, and about embarrassment and being embarrassed, and why I didn't feel that way today where I would have felt it before, and sat in this embarrassment and shame because I wasn't perfect. I did not present the perfect image of a girl that never slips and falls. Boy, was that wrong today. But gently and kindly I can acknowledge that within myself and seek to celebrate it. My imperfections are worthy of celebrating today, because I laughed at it. I laughed at my imperfection, and it helped other people today. Beautifully humbles me and reminds me I am human, and in doing so, I help others as well accept their humanity. Beautiful. So there's nothing they could tell me that is worthy of embarrassment, and sitting in front of them with full acceptance of that. It's a beautiful thing to give to somebody else when you already have it. Great stuff. I know this is a short episode, but I wanted to get on this and tell you this, because it's pretty awesome to realize that you are not the stuff that you do or the stuff that you try to be perfect at. It's nice when you're free from that, and that you just do stuff, and when life happens, whether you fall metaphorically or literally, and what brings you back up again is your self-love and self-compassion. It is not our need for perfection. It's something else. Let's be gentle and kind on the inside. Learn to accept yourself and stop saying, I have a need to be perfect. We don't have a need to be perfect. We just have a need to be human. Understand that humanity has a spectrum of behaviors. If a human would slip and fall, I'm more likely to slip and fall. How about that? Thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. I hope this was useful to you guys, and that you take it easy on yourself. As you are going into the beginning of this week, just take it easy. Somebody out there might want to hear that. And I love you guys. I really do. I'm sending you love, light, and the perfection of human imperfection. This has been another imperfect episode of Drive-thru.